on LinkedIn. All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. This gorgeous day wherever you're at across the country. I've got a couple guests here. Dr. Tara's down in Southern California. Lucas is in Austin, Texas, and I'm here in the Pacific Northwest in the greater Seattle area, little town called Steilacoom, Washington. And we're excited to talk with everybody today. I think today maybe this is the perfect day when everybody's probably, hopefully, we're getting close to the weekend. It's a sunny Thursday across the country, and we're here to talk about mental health, which can be kind of a downer conversation sometimes, right? And not to, not to belabor it or anything by any means, but it certainly is. It's an important topic, and we also happen to be closing out May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of messaging from a lot of different organizations and things over the course of this month regarding just checking in on your mental health and the mental health of others that you're close to and in your sphere of influence. And so hopefully we've all had a chance to do that and maybe just, again, reflect on our own mental health and areas that we can improve and that type of thing as well. But anyhow, my guests today are from a company called Yuna, which is a mental health platform for that is an employee benefit platform. And they're using AI and technology in some very interesting and innovative ways. And so, what I think want to do is tee up our guests in a little bit more detail, let them introduce themselves, and then we'll start to dig into things. So, Dr. Tara, if you want to start with yourself, give us your background and how what led you to Yuna and just introduce
Sure.
yourself to the
Chris, thanks
audience.
so much for having me, and Lucas as well. So I'm a co-founder at Yuna along with Lucas. My name is Dr. Tara Deliberto, and my background is in clinical psychology. So I started my career at Harvard where we were studying suicide and self-injury really across the world. So we were looking at prevalence rates as well as treatments that work and different technological ways that we can help people to get information on how to regulate their emotions. And from there, ended up doing my PhD, joining the faculty of Cornell, and opening and directing what's called a partial hospitalization program there. So in addition to running this hospital program, I also opened a training track for Cornell students to come and train in the program that I created. And I've done some research in suicide, self-injury, eating disorders, anxiety, stress, burnout, kind of you name it. I've worked studying the mental health issues that impact us most. And what I realized is that even though we know what treatments work and what treatment approaches work, they don't get out there. They kind of stay in the labs or they're behind all of these barriers that
Mhm.
Lucas will talk to you about. And so knowing that, for instance, people can learn what are called DBT skills, and if they know those skills and they're in a traumatic situation, they don't develop PTSD at statistically significant rates from people that don't know those skills. That made me want to disseminate this information. And I thought there's no better way to disseminate the teaching of skills than through AI and through an EAP platform. So here I am at Yuna leveraging that history, 20-year history in the mental health field to figure out how we can best support our employees. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
Awesome.
Well, I love that. I think that's great. And so I really do appreciate you sharing not just kind of what led you to Una, but really that academic background because I think that is something that's definitely important for folks to understand. Lucas, all right, shifting gears to you. Tell us a little bit about your journey into Una and how you found yourself in this space.
Now for the state school kid, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. It's all good.
Lucas Siegel, I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. I've really dedicated my career to finding problems that I could solve and solving them for people and building a business out of it. My journey to Yuna was unique. I met the original founder of Yuna and our co-founder Grant at a running club in Austin, and we became friends. We were both running different businesses, and we became friends. And after I had sold, I've for some horrible reason, I've had two people very close to me commit suicide. And one of them happened right after I sold my last company. And I was broken. I was really upset. And so I actually found out that Grant had launched this beta for this product where you could get 24/7 unlimited access to mental health support. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I tried it and I kept using it and I kept using it. And every week it kept getting better and better and better. And I kept healing and healing and healing. Ended up investing in the company and ended up joining as a co-founder. So for me, what we're doing is very personal because I started off as a user. So it brings me a lot of purpose and clarity to be here and to be able to help support so many tens and tens of thousands of employees that never would have had access, and do it in a groundbreaking and ethical access way. I think really can change the world. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, and I didn't know that before about the kind of the personal journey there, and I think probably most of us on this call have seen or been affected in some way by something similar. I remember I was talking about this with somebody who's in HR recently, a friend of mine, a guy I've known since high school, and we were talking about this exact subject earlier this month, ironically. And there was a classmate of ours who committed suicide several years ago now, about, I don't know, 10 years or so after high school. And, so it's been a minute. But I remember when I saw, and we were talking about this in the car, I'm like, remember just when that happened, how I couldn't focus the rest of that day. This wasn't somebody I'd stayed in touch with since high school, but it was somebody that I knew. And I couldn't focus the rest of that day. And even the next day was kind of hard. It was just like, man, like you just kind of had this like sinking feeling of like, geez, not that I could have necessarily done anything, but geez, like how do you get to that point? This was somebody who had, a couple little kids at the time, basically, and how does it get that dark for somebody to, want to do that? And then, so that was one that me personally I had experienced, and then. Another one was one of our clients had an employee who, this was kind of during COVID, so I'm sure there was a lot going on with this person. Somebody I never met or anything, but they committed suicide. And of course, the client, the employer came to us and said, hey, here's what happened. And so we need to take this person off the plan. And also, like, don't we have some kind of bereavement benefit as part of the mental health piece? And I'm like, yeah, we do. So we ended up putting a series of text messages together to send out to the employees on behalf of the group that just basically said something to the effect of, "Hey, we realize what happened, and we want you to know that our hearts aching and everything else along with you. There is a bereavement benefit. There is a benefit as part of your employee benefits package where you can get some grief counseling and that type of thing." And this wasn't a super big group. They had about, I think, 60 employees or so. And I remember checking the utilization about a week later to see, had anybody used that, right? Had anybody called in? Had anybody, reached out and had some kind of counseling? And 50% of them had used that within a week of this taking place. So it goes to show you that I think there's a lot of people out there that from all these stories, that there's a lot of people that just kind of suffer in silence and just kind of think that, oh, well, nobody cares about my problems, and and it may seem like the end of the world to them, but to your point, Lucas, that you started using Yuna as a patient, or just as a beta tester, or whatever it was. And you used that, and you saw some improvement rather than just kind of ignore it and hope that the problem goes away. So I think, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I want to talk about a couple things here that we're landing on, because I know that a lot of the attendees here are in the employee benefits space, CHROs, and even CFOs that are, looking at budgets and deciding like what happens here. And when we talk about suicide, we're talking about an extreme
Hmm.
of mental health issues that need support. But when you look at an organization on a day-to-day basis, absenteeism, presenteeism, people showing up to work with sleep deprivation and hungover because they're dealing with things and they don't know how to deal with it and they don't know who to talk to. 54% of employees, this is a SHRM statistic, said that they would never even consider using their EAP just because of the stigma alone. But the problem is, like, let's say someone does finally rack up the courage to go to their EAP, they call some hotline, wait on hold, and finally get someone and book an appointment. The average wait time for someone was 21 to 48 days to get the support that they need.
Jeez.
And that's not just a product problem, the fact that EAPs, many of them were designed in the 50s, but it's also a systemic problem because 2/3 of clinical psychologists in the United States are on a wait list or are not accepting new patients. 87% of counties are designated as mental health crisis areas because there's not enough clinicians to support the demand. What Yuna is doing is we're solving so many problems at once, but the main theme of this problem solving is democratization of access. And when I say access, 54% of people would never even use their EAP because they don't want to get caught. So access means destigmatizing. Access means dropping costs for employers to offer 24/7 unlimited support, but costs for employees. Access means having Yuna available, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're having a panic attack, or whether it's noon and you're out to lunch and you're frustrated because you're not feeling recognized by your boss and you're thinking about quitting. Access is what drives impact in Yuna's case. And we've got CFOs, we've got CHROs, we've got head of HRs, we've got managers, we've got CEOs coming to us saying, we're seeing massive changes across the organization. And the cost, we like to call it the cost per impact. The impact that we can make by having Yuna be an AI first to triage subclinical issues and then allow for the predictive, if someone needs additional support, we have so much context inside Yuna that we can get them to the right person at the right time for the right needs. So
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible what's happening right now.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love how you framed that because that one of my first questions was going to be, basically the fact that a lot of employers just, they offer a base level EAP and call it a day, and it's usually, again, most of the conversation and a lot of the money is tied up in the medical plans, and then it seems like dental and vision, and then you start to, the more you kind of go down that path toward away from medical plans, I think there becomes decision fatigue for a lot of leadership teams and things like that, and they don't necessarily focus on it as much. But I think you framed that really well, Lucas. So, Dr. Tara, I want
Can
to
I
kind of
ask you a question real quick, Chris?
sure, sure. Oh boy.
What percentage of your groups saw a disproportionate rise in health renewals over the
Geez.
last 12 months?
Like all of them. Yeah, no, this has been the last two renewal cycles have been really ugly, and so yeah, we've had to look for a lot of different, and that's something that GBS is, I'll give my commercial here real quick, since
Okay.
you teed me up. Our mission here is to modernize healthcare by building 21st century health plans that eliminate employee out-of-pocket expenses and guide them to higher quality care. And so when you think about that, that's where Yuna and a number of other solutions across the spectrum always, fit in with what we're ultimately trying to achieve. Because when I think about a 21st century health plan, um, it's incentivizing people to act in their own best interest. Whereas what those more traditional health plans don't necessarily do that. It's like, here's your deductible, here's your out of pocket max, and they've built health plans the same way since the 1960s, right? Where I think that solutions like Yuna and others, where you're able to leverage some technology internally and help make more of a personalized experience for somebody. Again, whether that's mental health or physical health or dental or vision or whatever it is, when you're able to have something that's much more customized, I think that's what we're used to. I mean, we customize everything on our phones these days, right? Like, why shouldn't our benefits be held to the same standard there, right? So, but yeah, no, it's been, the last two renewal cycles now, in some cases, three renewal cycles have been rather ugly. And again, I don't want to get us too far off on a tangent, but no, you're right, and it's a good question and a good call out for sure.
Well, the reason why I asked it is because mental health claims are up 70% since 2017. It's the second fastest growing category within health plans. And we're not doing, suicide rates are up 31% since 2000.
Right.
So we're throwing double the amount of money at it and we're worse at helping it.
Right.
So that's why Yuna exists. And I'm excited for Dr. Tar to explain some of this incredible work that she's been building inside this, because she's touching people's lives around the world every single day.
Yeah. Well, and with that, so Dr. Tara, where I was going to go, unless you want to just add to that, but I wanted to maybe hear a little bit more about, you're taking a very clinically informed approach to mental health, and we've kind of touched on the technology piece as well. So maybe help explain how the clinically informed piece, how that ties in with the technology, and how you can how that offers more of a distinct advantage over your more traditional EAP or wellness
Absolutely.
programs.
Let's take a look under the hood. So I would say there are three
Yes.
main buckets where the clinically informed approach is absolutely necessary for a mental health benefit like Yuna. The first, of course, is risk triaging. And luckily, I've had this 20-year history working at the most severe end of the mental health spectrum in a lot of ways. Studying suicide, I have 2,000 citations in the suicide literature. I've created actually an eating disorder treatment. So that was published by New Harbinger, and it's been translated into Spanish. And a lot of people don't know, but eating disorders are actually the second deadliest mental illness, and they cause all sorts of physical health sequelae, right? So if you're binge eating, you can imagine how that might impact the body. If you're not eating enough, you might also imagine how that might impact the body. It's actually pretty deadly. You mix that with not taking medications properly and or drinking, and you have yourself a pretty serious situation physically. And people often have physical damage done, and people don't know that it's actually the eating disorder that is the root cause of that physical health issue. So having this background, what I'm able to do, of course, is look at all of the different markers that would be occurring in conversations and make sure that people are, as Lucas was saying earlier, basically given resources, whether it be a therapist or a hotline, et cetera, or even 911, that they would need in that moment, or that would be really helpful to them. In the second bucket, we have the treatment interventions themselves. So what we can do with Yuna is not necessarily provide a full stack treatment the way that a hospital program could, of course, but what we can do is we can extract all of the skills that we know work, that you can go to your local library and read books on and practice. But what we're doing is we're using a sophisticated selection system created by yours truly and my team to get the right skills to the right people at the right time when they need it. And that is a significant advantage. We actually just came out with a study where we looked at 28,000 recent conversations, and we found that 73% of those conversations had a statistically significant change from start to finish in terms of aversive emotionality, meaning people came in distressed and they left 73% of the time, which is a very high number. I wonder what the number is for therapists in therapy sessions, but 73% leave in a less distressed state. That's really saying something. So we are using these evidence-based interventions and essentially taking a quote teach a man to fish approach rather than just having people come in and saying they're there. We're teaching them these skills that actually, if we want to put it into financial terms, create dividends in perpetuity. Because when you learn the skills, you have them. You're equipped with them to use in any circumstance. So that is a really significant camp or bucket in which the clinically informed approach is really necessary. And the third is the memory itself. So I work very, very closely with our lead engineer to create a bespoke memory system that tracks what's happening in the conversations the same way that a clinical psychologist would. We're tracking how much you believe that you've failed, or the degree to which you currently believe I'm worthless, which is, of course, a horrible thought. And everybody has inherent value. But when these thoughts come up, they're really tied to very significant behaviors like suicidality or drinking or more problematic patterns like substance abuse over time, et cetera. So by creating this bespoke memory system that acts like a clinical psychologist would in tracking what's happening cognitively, emotionally, physically, behaviorally, and understanding the connections among those four data point areas, we have a significant advantage in being able to help surface insights to our users and surface patterns, problematic patterns, and teach people to engage in healthy patterns. So these are the three clinically informed buckets: risk mitigation, evidence-based skills, and memory and patterning.
Right. Okay. No, that's great. Well, and I think if so for um, so along those same lines, right? I think for the people that are on this call, for HR leaders, business owners, people in leadership, basically at organizations, what are maybe the most significant and often overlooked impacts that that the employee mental health has on a company's bottom line and on their productivity?
Yeah, so I was actually just talking to a TPA yesterday about this. How does a person go from a normal person on a health plan to a $100,000 claim? So I'm going to give you real life examples. We call it a continuum and a spectrum. So right here you've got someone that is having a bad day and they're a little bit upset. Over here you have someone with, let's say, late stage schizophrenia. And then right here you've got what we call the clinical part, which is like 10 to 15% of the population that we consider to be clinical. Over here, which is the vast majority, 85 to 90% of the population, is typically what we call subclinical. And so one is like, I'm just a little upset today. Another one is like, yeah, I've been upset for a while. I'm unhappy with my marriage, or it starts to boil over. And the more severe, the closer they get to this clinical category. And every CFO that looks at their health plan realizes that it's very few people that drive a massive explosion in claims.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that person, let's say dabbling here, more, let's just use marriage as an example. They're unhappy in their marriage. They're starting to feel really bad about themselves. Every night they're going back, they're drinking more and more and more. Now it's a problem. They've moved to here, boom. They turn it into a $100,000 inpatient claim because they keep going back. And this happens every day. And that's part of the reason why there's been such an explosion in mental health claims on health plans. So I'll let Dr. Tara talk about some of this, but we have been designing and engineering some of the most studied, validated ways to help people get off of this track and go back into this track. And we are about to launch, I think, the world's first AI sobriety support clinical study with sober homes and facilities all across Texas.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
Breaking. Yeah, it is actually really, really something. I was going to maybe mention this in the beginning, but I think it's a good moment to mention it now. So, when my manual that I wrote for eating disorders had been translated into Spanish and it was really out in the world, I had a bit of a break in between, thinking about what my next big project would be. So I called my old boss at Harvard. His name is Matt Nock, Professor Matt Nock. He's tenured and he has a MacArthur Fellowship, which is also known as a Genius Award. And so we were talking and he said, by all outward measures of success, I'm a tenured Harvard professor. I have a Genius Award. He's one of the most cited researchers in the entire field. And he said, I haven't had an impact on the suicide rate at all. In fact, there was someone that had jumped off the psychology building at Harvard and killed themselves earlier that year. And that really stuck with me. And about a week later, I was connected to Grant, the founder of Yuna, and I had that story ringing in my head. We are doing all this work, we're doing all this research, we're getting pats on the back, we're getting promoted through the ranks in academia, but what are we actually doing? Can we actually make an impact? And Yuna can make an impact, right? It can help support the people that are in residential treatment centers trying to get sober. It could, help the people that are helping their children through physical illnesses, mental illnesses. I mean, it can touch, so many different people's lives in this way. And it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to collect data in this way and get the evidence-based skills that we know work into people's hands. So in terms of what that means for, as Lucas was saying, the people who are not yet in that crisis area, because it can help. You can be in a residential treatment facility and also use Yuna. They're not mutually exclusive. And Yuna can also be helpful if people are nearing burnout and they don't know how to talk to their managers and assert their needs or take time off. It can help people who are having difficulty with sleep. We have specialized sleep agents, again, trained by yours truly and my team, that help you to set the stage to fall asleep and stay asleep. Basically, whatever the issue could be that would be impacting an employee's health, we have specialized agents using best-in-class techniques for those given scenarios to essentially improve the mental wellness of employees, but also, of course, that has downstream effects for productivity, presenteeism, et cetera. So we have a pretty powerful tool on our hands here that is quite scalable and, relatively speaking, very low cost. So I think Lucas can speak to that as well, but I always hear him say, right, for the cost of a cup of coffee, you can have a tool in your hand, literally in your hand, at the push of a button, that could leverage decades of high level research in the field. So, as a psychologist who spent 20 years in the lab and in the trenches in psych hospitals and building programs and creating treatment, I mean, it's really something. It's really something to be at this cutting edge with Lucas and the rest of the unit team.
Tell me one mental health provider that is sold B2B that can tell you exactly across your entire organization how much they have increased or decreased the stress of your employees pre and post, and increased or decreased the mood of your employees. For employers, we're HIPAA compliant, we're SOC 2 type 2, everything is de-identified. But employers can also see trends. As long as the sample size is high enough that it would not basically rat someone out,
Right.
they can see overall trends about what's going on in the organization that needs support. So we've got a group right now that we met with, and they're like, oh my gosh, 42% of the conversations have some sort of theme around burnout and exhaustion. We got to do something about this. So it's incredibly helpful. It's incredibly ROI focused. And for $1 to $6 per employee per month, they get unlimited, uncapped sessions with advanced clinical routing to in-network practitioners. It's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
shocking.
It's yeah, no, it's powerful. It is absolutely, and so I think what part of what you guys are speaking to is this is presenteeism is you could also refer to that as the cognitive tax, and it's just like my example from when I saw that my classmate had committed suicide and stuff. Right, it was like again I couldn't focus the rest of that day and had a really hard time basically the rest of that week, but certainly that next day. But I think the other thing too is when somebody's going through something, everybody's had that coworker that's maybe just kind of always in a bad mood, or there's some days are worse than others, and there's kind of that emotional contagion, and so where it's like, oh man, Jim's having a day today, like let's just avoid him, right? Like, so where I could see this could be something that might tie in with that too. So maybe that's something, Dr. Tara, I don't know if you can maybe speak to some of those things, the presenteeism, the cognitive tax, the emotional contagion aspect of this
Absolutely.
as
The
well.
emotional contagion piece is something that I think we don't talk about enough. So I'll start there first. When someone is in a bad mood, when someone is negative, judgmental, overburdened, pressured, any of these things, there is a contagion effect among the team members. And we all
Hmm.
kind of know when the vibe is off, but clinically speaking, this is a real phenomenon that occurs. And so when we have the tools to mitigate that emotional contagion in that way, there are all sorts of downstream effects. So we have in Yuna the functionality for bespoke meditations. So what Yuna does is it takes the content, the memories from your sessions, and it weaves a meditation that's just for you. So for instance, Chris, if you were to use Yuna in that day that you were really struggling, it would say something like, Chris, take this time for yourself. Sit with your emotions. This is a very heavy day. And it would walk you through this processing where you can essentially have that time for yourself and then get back to what you need to do, right? And so it's teaching people to
Hmm.
not just bury those emotions and kind of power through, which is always clunky and performance is poor, but to actually take that breath, take a moment, and then get back to what you need to do, right? And it teaches focus as well. So with these mindfulness practices, we're enhancing that cognitive muscle of focus, which is of course what we need, not just to regulate our emotions and be well, but also to do the job that we are there to do. And of course, we know that when we're doing a really good job, we feel a sense of mastery and confidence. So yes, it's about the bottom line of ROI, but these things are actually, they're the opposite of mutually exclusive. They're actually quite tied together in an all ships rise kind of way, right? So if you're homing your skills on focus and productivity, and then you're at work and you're more productive and feeling more confident, right? This is a win-win situation. So essentially that's what Yuna is providing in the milieu of the workplace.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's good. Lucas, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. So, um, this was last summer, and I was talking with someone that I work with, and they totally triggered me. And so I'm pacing around my backyard talking to Yuna about it, just kind of venting. And Yuna said, "Hey Luke, can you stop for a second? Does this remind you of what we talked about 3 months ago when this person really upset you?" And at first I'm like, "What?" And then I sat with it for a second. I was like, "Oh yeah." Because Yuna goes, "I'm noticing a pattern about something. When one person does something to you, you perceive it a certain way, and it's incredibly upsetting to you. And although these are two different situations, it's the same pattern. So let's talk about what about this action is actually upsetting you and why. And let's put yourself in their shoes. Why do you think they're doing it? And do you think they're doing it to put you in this state, or is there another reason?" And once we work through that, we can talk about how do we get through this so that you can get the outcomes that you need while not irritating the hell out of them, and show up to be the person that you want to be in this situation. So a lot of people say that having a relationship is like having a mirror, because you have to kind of look at yourself. You're like, "Oh yeah, I do kind of smell bad after I go running," or whatever. But Yuna is Yuna's a bit of a mirror too, and it brings me to the point. Like, we get a lot of questions a lot of times about how is this any different than ChatGPT? And ChatGPT and Claude, or whatever, which systems you're using, Grok, these are generalized models. So they're pulling from everywhere they humanly can, as fast as they can, and pushing out the best answer it can think of. There's absolutely, and that's why we've heard horror stories about, like with ChatGPT, telling some 14-year-old kid that, encouraging him to kill himself.
Man.
Horrific.
Yeah.
But that's because these are open-end systems. They're generalized models, and there's zero clinical shielding oversight in what they do. The other thing is that they're built to be naturally affirmative. So anyone who's ever used ChatGPT or Claude, I can be like, "Yeah, like I'm really thinking about just like eating pizza every single day this week." And ChatGPT will be like, "You know what, Luke? You deserve it. Good for you." It's like, come on.
Yeah.
It's affirmative, because they
Yeah.
want the serotonin dopamine hits, and you just keep gobbling it up. You
Yeah.
was built by clinicians and trained by incredible, I mean, look at her. Dr. Tara, world renowned, and it's trained to do it in a way that is not perpetuating bad behavior or addicting people or putting people in unhealthy, unsafe situations so that they can just feel good about themselves all the time. It's trained in a way that's using the most clinically validated therapeutic modalities on the planet to make sure we steer people in the right direction at the right time for the right
I want to
cost.
piggyback off of that, Lucas, and actually say that having the user's best intention in mind is something that these big companies, they just don't have. I think, I hope that it's even just negligence and it's not more nefarious than that, but they certainly don't kind of put the person first, right? And I always say that, especially psychologists or therapists, like it's a hard road to be a therapist, and we could be doing anything, right? I could have chosen to do anything, but I chose to be a therapist because I want to help people. It's as simple as that, right? Like it really is as simple as that. And why would I ever want to build something that wouldn't be for somebody's benefit? Like that's not even in my psychological makeup to conceive of something like that. And so I think that's what is missing from these large language models. Like Lucas said, they're very sycophantic. They'll tell you anything, but more importantly, they're not going to tell you what you need. They're not going to hold up the mirror. You know why? Because holding up the mirror, it's a little uncomfortable, right? That's why relationships are hard. That's why therapy is hard. And also, isn't it so rewarding? And when you see that your emotions are regulating from a session in Yuna, when you're learning skills, when you're more regulated, when you're setting boundaries, when you are experiencing the lived benefit of learning those skills, it's so obvious, right? So we when we first launched, we had a big booth at Sherman. We had these soundproof booths for people to walk in and use Unit. And so many people were skeptical. They're like, I don't want to talk to AI. I don't want to start opening up. And then people were coming out crying, hugging us, saying thank you. They went from being skeptical to evangelical from the experience of having the session. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see. And essentially, like that experience, I don't think that you're just going to get from this sycophantic model that doesn't have your best interest in mind. There's this kind of felt sense that people have when using Unit. We have the data to support that it works, but also the experience of it is something that I encourage people to try. If you don't like it, you don't like it, fine. But at least give it a shot and see, what it feels like to have this clinically informed approach tailored for your needs. And then I think that more than any data point is going to help with the understanding of what this is.
A couple things now. I'm piggybacking on you.
Keep it going, guys.
Yeah,
This is
I
great.
like this riff. This is good. So another thing is, people are using AI for mental health support anyways. This is 2026. I think it's ChatGPT last year. It was like the second largest use case behind coding. So people are doing it anyways. But it's our responsibility to make sure that the AI that we're using is scientifically grounded, clinically rooted, caring about doing good in the world and helping people. And this is a way for employers to get incredible reach on usage, reduce healthcare costs, and for very little money. Just replace the EAP that you're using that no one uses. 95 to 97% of employees never touch, completely unutilized. Rip it. Do something that people really love, that's really easy for them to use, that they can talk to at midnight, and if they need routing to a healthcare professional, they can get best-in-class routing. It's a no-brainer. So that's why we've been seeing so much traction and getting so much inbound on all these groups, because they have the ability to replace a product that none of their employees really like with something that they get to use, that's uncapped and costs less money and delivers like 10 times more value.
And actually gets utilized, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
people
it
actually
actually, well, and that's where, I mean, you guys I had two questions teed up, but you guys answered them before I even had a chance to ask them. One about, first of all, what you just covered, which was, are people skeptical of this because it's AI? There's a lot of people out there, obviously you guys lean into AI. I lean into AI. There's others that don't. They lean away from it, and so I think naturally they're going to be a little bit more skeptical. Although I could also see if I was in that soundproof booth or whatever you described at the Sherm event, I would think it might be even easier to open up to a machine because you're like, well, all right, well, whatever, let's see if this really works, and then you really just download everything. Whereas if you're sitting across from a person, somebody might bring in some of their own baggage into that. Like I'm not gonna just divulge everything right away, or I want this person to like me. So anyways, just the number of things that would kind of play into a human to human interaction that is kind of stripped away. I mean, there are times where when I talk to AI, it's I do it in a way that I know I'm not going to hurt its feelings. I don't necessarily care, or when it does make a mistake, which those do happen. I mean, AI has not told me to kill myself, fortunately, but you know, but yeah, I mean, you can kind of, I think, maybe be a little bit more candid than you otherwise would, and just to kind of see, how that plays out. And I remember when I did the demo with your colleague Paulo, that basically that's what he did, was he just pulled it up and was like going through as a demo account, but basically saying, yeah, I'm having like suicidal ideation and these types of things, and went to the most extreme, which hopefully many of us are not there at this point. But anyhow, so I can see how some others might be a little bit more candid, hopefully, than they otherwise would. So anyhow, so I guess where I want to go next is when thinking about, as we're wrapping up here in the next 10 or so minutes, when moving like from innovating treatments inside of a hospital to then scaling a tech platform, that's a big leap for Dr. Tara and team there. How do you translate some of those nuanced principles of effective therapy into actual features for the user experience, like we're describing right now, of Yuna, to ensure that it really truly
Very
does help
carefully.
people?
It's the answer very, very carefully. There are these three buckets, right? The interventions, or sorry, the escalation pathways, the interventions, and the memory. And throughout these three buckets, and doing work in each of them, there's careful measurement that needs to happen. So it might seem a little excessive, but I read through hundreds of reports about the sessions that are de-identified every day. Hundreds. I have it on my phone pulled up when I'm standing in the grocery line, or I'm waiting for my son to get out of karate. I mean, I am constantly reading these session reports to make sure that the models are kind of behaving, and they are. But in addition to quality control, what I think really was needed was a very strong relationship with the engineering team, so that what I could explain needs to happen in these sessions, we work together to make sure that that gets put into the product, and we test it quite rigorously, and then monitor it again quite rigorously as well. So I think that it was, to be honest, if I can just take a moment here to comment on my own personal journey, it was a little bit of a bumpy road at first, right? Kind of like getting from that mindset of being a director in a hospital to this subclinical tech app. But luckily, I've been kind of adjacent to the tech world for quite some time. So I've been advisors to various tech companies that friends or colleagues have built, and it's not my first rodeo. So I think that my experience working in startups, working with engineers on different projects in the past, teed me up to be able to understand what's needed on the engineering and tech side, and then kind of doing my best to take my clinical brain and really build something from the ground up together as a team with the end user in mind and their well-being in mind, and of course the company's well-being as a collective. So I think it was a bit of a circuitous answer to your question, but essentially there's a lot of collaboration, monitoring, and fastidiousness that would need to go into this product, and does.
Yeah, no, I love that. No, I love that. Lucas, anything that you would add there?
I mean, I think as we're wrapping, I guess I would just say to everyone listening, like whether you're a CFO and you're looking at budgets next year and you're looking at your health plan and saying, how do we make some sort of changes to have these escalations stop, or a CHRO or a chief people officer or HR benefits leader, reach out to us and let us show you, and we'll give you a free account and you can try it. The second, like, employees are desperately asking for better support and more support, but employers can't always pay for it. It's expensive, and clinicians, there aren't enough of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can create something, we usually call it like a stop loss almost for rising mental health claims, because we can triage the 90% of subclinical within the app and then really, really intelligently route the 10% or 12% or whatever the number is to some of the best providers on the planet, because we have the context that no questionnaire does, because people talk to you now. And so if you're curious, this is my LinkedIn. Reach out to us. We'd love to show you. And, if you've got health spend, anonymized health spend data, we can give you a proposal of what we think we can drop. The rollout is incredibly easy. Utilization, depending on the group, we're sitting at anywhere from 10 to 47%. And we're here to help people, and we're here to help companies all at the same time. So please don't be shy. You can write me at midnight. You can write me whatever. We love this. This is what we do. This is our passion, and we're here to serve.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that comes through very well. And as we're wrapping here, Dr. Tara, any final thoughts, any parting shots that you would like to give as well?
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you. There is a special moment in time here where we all have the opportunity to make a really big difference for the people that work with us, for our colleagues, for our friends, for our businesses. This has never been available as a resource before, and we are absolutely thrilled and very grateful to have the opportunity to work with you with this. Whatever questions you have, if you need help rolling it out, if you are concerned about anything, as Lucas said, please reach out to us. We're very accessible. We want to make this work. This is what our kind of hearts and souls are in, and we're here. We're here, and we want to help. So please, please, please don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, what I'll kind of tie a bow on this here too, myself, and having spoken with you guys a couple of times now, including today, that passion and that enthusiasm for what you're doing really does come through, right? That's not something that you can fake. And so anyway, so I want to thank you guys for for joining me today and for talking about this very important topic and the product that you guys have built, during Mental Health Awareness Month, and during a time that we have, to Lucas's point very early in the conversation today, that we've seen an uptick in a lot of these issues, right? The suicides and mental health and all this, and it's certainly been more of a focus for employers in these last few years, basically since COVID. I think that was one thing that really kind of sped up the awareness around this, and maybe hopefully that stigma that people have is starting to is starting to die off, and just people being willing to be a little bit vulnerable and not try to be the when we talk about this stuff, I always watch The Sopranos on HBO. I don't know if you guys watch that show at all, but like this, like it totally makes I think Dr. Tara, you're like Dr. Melfi, right? Like that's where I'm
I'm a
like,
Sicilian New Yorker
but
therapist.
and
Yeah.
anyways, if nobody, yes, yeah, but really, and what I thought was so great about that show at the time was like the fact that it did kind of shed more of a positive light on, I mean, nobody's going to expect a mob boss to be sitting in front of a therapist, right? And like the rest of us that are not mob bosses, like our lives are not that stressful that we wouldn't need help talking to somebody, right? So anyways, I just think that sometimes that it's art imitating life or life imitating art or whatever, however that saying goes, right? But anyhow, so again, I do just want to, as I'm rambling on here, I do just want to thank you guys for coming on and again shedding light on this topic, and for joining me today and sharing your personal journeys in mental health, as well as what led you guys to start this amazing company, Yuna.
Thank you, Chris. And we're so honored to be working with you and your firm. Can't wait to make
Right.
an impact
Thank you so
together.
much.
You got it. All right, all. Take care.